Hello, guys. It's Shane Davis. It's Talking and Drawing with Yanzi Lynn. Maybe she sometimes will make a sandwich. And today is the day we're here to talk about Decimated DC once again and the Can DC Market Comics. And here we go. So, as the direct comic market starts to get engulfed in flames, more and more we see Twitter comic pros starting to reflect about days past, because pretty soon the comic market as we know it, it's in the rear view. So everybody's starting to look behind and say that over there, they're starting to point fingers at who did what and who didn't do their job. And interesting enough, Bryan Hitch is now pointing a finger at DC about a book that's 2 years done. It's been done for about 2 years, I think, his Hawkman run. And he's complaining about what DC didn't do way back then. Now, what's interesting, why do that? Why do that at this point in time? Why weren't you complaining when it was happening? Why weren't you complaining shortly after it finished? Why wait a year and a half, 2 years to complain about it? Well, because it doesn't matter anymore, because he knows it's over. He knows that the show's over. That's why we call it Decimated DC. Isn't that right, Jans?
Oh, wait. So the point is that he wouldn't even talk about it when it looked like he would have a job at DC, but when it looks like DC is burning down, everyone's rates are being cut. And then he's like, well, I guess it's time to open my mouth and say something about a grievance that was done to me years ago.
Well, it's not just him. We've seen Jimmy Palmiotti talk about how he hasn't been paid fairly for character appearances in movies, stuff like that. We've seen Jimmy Palmiotti talk about his rate being cut and then him take down the tweet. So we're seeing a lot of chatter happening, a lot of I don't know, I wouldn't even call it the squeaky wheel thing, because they're right out just complaining.
The peasants are praising.
They're calling foul. They're saying foul, but the game's over. So that's kind of what's happening. So in this case, we have Bryan Hitch saying that he's basically, you can read the tweet, but in the nutshell, I've heard a lot of this argument before, kind of from YouTube comics, not from comic professionals. And that's why is the marketing of comics so reliant on the creative, meaning the writer, their Twitter feed? Why do you need Donny Cates to promote a Venom book? Why can't Marvel promote it and stuff like that? So let's get into what Bryan Hitch has to say.
Bryan Hitch says, I think Rob Vendetti and I held up our end of the creative bargain and gave DC a damn good comic. It was DC's job to interest anyone and everyone to buy. They didn't, unfortunately.
So here's the thing with that. It's Hawkman, and there are a set number of fans out there that like Hawkman. I'm one of them. But DC really doesn't know how to market this character, which is what it is. And the truth is, there's probably too many comics to market. And ideally, when I worked in comics, I would meet, the people in charge of marketing comics. And one time I actually heard a gentleman laugh to the editors that you can't market comics. And the point of that is you can market a comic, and that's not necessarily true. You can't market comics. But when you have such a glut of monthly comics, how do you market the monthly comics? And this is where you see Marvel and DC and the big two basically rely on the brand, because you can market the brand, and through the marketing the brand, you market everything in that brand. And this has kind of morphed into a weird way where they don't just market the brand now. They kind of are reliant on marketing events. And from events, they market this one idea and then put a sticker on each book that, like Civil War, it's on all of these books. And all they have to do is market the concept of Civil War in the Marvel universe. And then everything that has that, that rubber stamp on the cover, they already marketed that book. They don't really have to invest in and roll up their sleeves and convince you and try to sell that book to you. Now, the problem with that is things like this Hawkman book. It wasn't really part of an event. It was a 12-issue prestigious book deal, kind of, or a maxi series that was supposed to just throw a little love on Hawkman, and maybe shine him a little bit and just say, what if this character could be in a TV show? What if this character could be in a movie, which he both is? So, I mean, to Warner Brothers, it was justified to do this book, but was it justified to market it? And we'll get into what was he running up against at the time.
It seems like Bryan has just had a run of bad luck with Hawkman. He says, Hawkman launched in a week sandwiched between the launch of Bendis' Superman and Snyder's Justice League. I think we got an announcement, but no pushes or fanfares. And of course, all the attention in stores and buyers went to those two launches, which had huge initiatives. So
Right.
very bad timing. It's like a B-lister character caught between two big heavyweights.
Well, not just that, but they paid like a bucket load of money for Brian Michael Bendis. So all of a sudden, and this kind of gives you a timeline of why is he complaining about this now. We're going way back when Brian Hitch was working on Hawkman, and Brian Michael Bendis, I'm sorry, was coming over to DC Comics. Well, they put a buttload of cash out there, and they have to try to pull back some of their investment. So they had to market Superman. They had to market Bendis, those two things. And we saw this with the Action Comics annual, big, what was it, 1000?
Yeah,
Action Comics
1000.
1000. And DC Comics, when I was working there, that was everything. Everything was so important about that book. It was going to be in the Guinness World Book of Records. It was a big thing, but it was not just a big thing for Superman. It was a big thing because Bendis was coming over, and it was a big deal to try to pump up the Superman sales to even justify what they were paying for Bendis. So where this goes into Bryan Hitch and how like everything suffered for that at DC Comics is all the attention had to either go into Action Comics 1000, all the marketing, all their money, all the websites had to be talking about that and pounding the pavement with that. And then two, they had to start pumping up Bendis because they had so much money on the line. They couldn't market anything else. They had to try to recoup that money that they on the deal they did. It's an interesting turn of events. Snyder going on to Justice League, big Justice League launch. That sucked too. That he was behind that. So where this goes is marketing comics, and this brings me back to the gentleman that just kind of laughed and said, "Hey, you can't market comics. I have kind of like a BS job at DC Comics." Is depending on the time and everything around you. It's all relative. Like what's going over here has an effect on what's happening next to it, and everything connected to it in the sequential months. Like it is what it is. So if there were less books, though, could you market these books better? Could you build an audience of a better readership? Probably, because if you had the difference between 60 comics a month and say like 20 comics a month is there's less to market, and you could spend that time and energy and money marketing 20 comics better than 60. And this is something that people have said in the comic book industry. What if the market contracted? Like, what if it actually became smaller? Would it become leaner and meaner and more effective? And we get rid of all these countless spin-offs, come back down to a set number of core books. Would we be able, one, to advertise what we're doing, period? Because right now, if you look around in comics right now, it's like an echo chamber. It's just an echo. Nobody's talking about anything going on in comics right now, probably because there's just too much everything. The amount of books that we're doing right now in the American comic book industry that are all flat, okay, they're only being talked about if it's a month that's pandering towards a certain demographic. I hate to say that. That's the only thing that's ticking that you can hear, and everything's white noise basically right now. Everything's just kind of humming all at the same frequency that nothing stands out because there's just a glut of it, and it's honestly subpar. Nobody's talking about the great lot creative talent on any book right now at Marvel and DC. Why? One, there's probably no great talent on these books, and two, even if there is, it's just in the mud with everything around it. Everything around it is such crap that it's being weighed down by it, and all these books have to tie into one another too. So even if there's one good book in the crowd at Marvel or DC, do I have to buy 3 other bad books to even understand the storyline? Then that's a no sell for some people. They're not going to read 3 bad books to enjoy one good book and understand the story, and this is a problem. But in Bryan Hitch's case with Vendetti and him on Hawkman, they did do a good book, and they just kind of got lost in the sea of comics.
Well, honey, that brings up the question, though. Do you think it's the responsibility of the creatives to market it the way that DC has been acting?
No, it's not, because they're only paid to do the work, and that's that. Now, the comic market with the writers market that they went into for the last 10 years, obviously it fed into their Twitter feeds, and then it fed into people like Dan Slott telling you to, blocking people, telling you not to buy their books, stuff like this. So it kind of bit them in the hand by trying to rely on creators in a writer-driven market to sell books. I mean, he's right that they do expect creators to do it, but it's actually had the worst result because you gave too much power to writers, and these writers can just tell fans to elf off and block them. So Marvel can't really sell these books. They need Dan Slott to sell it, but you can't see Dan Slott talk about his book because he's blocked you. Then did they effectively market that book? No, because you're blocked. Maybe you don't see it because blockchain. The idea of relying on creators to sell books, it's not that it's impossible, but it's gotten out of hand. It's really the climate we're in with creators talking down the fans. It's really not worked out too well, in my humble opinion. But you know what is working out well, Yanzi? Guess what's working out well? Starlight Cat's Merlion Rising, Little Girl, Big Adventures, Cats in Space. We hit $113,000 and moving on up. I could see this being a $114,000 campaign. I myself am happy enough if I can get 10 more backers. Guys, I think it's possible we can have 1,500 backers on our first Indiegogo project, and I'm happy to market this book to you. So please sub to the channel, hit like, leave me a comment, share the video. It helps us out tremendously, guys. And we will catch you guys again with another video. Take care.